Hey guys, today I thought we would talk about our herbaceous border. This has been one of the best additions to my garden ever, and I wanted to talk to you about why I think that this one is so different from a lot of my other beds. And my goal is to attract as many pollinators as I can and kind of balance the ecosystem in my own garden. And this has been one of the best things we've added. So I kind of wanted to go over some of the things that we decided to do and why it made a difference as far as how alive this border feels, and the one behind the camera. And mainly it's just the word abundance. Just keep planting and throw out all the rules. I didn't care about heights, spacing. I just put it in there and just kept planting and just allowed the plants to kind of do what they would naturally do. The ones that were more aggressive are winning out over the ones that are less aggressive, although for the most part, we've had a great balance. I've kind of been planting through the seasons. This is brand new. This was bare land. This got destroyed during Eduard after Tropical Storm Faye last July 2020. This Faye just brought a lot of water, but 3 weeks later we got Tropical Storm Eduard, and he brought wind and water, and it picked up this garden like it was Wizard of Oz, spun it around, destroyed it. So we kind of lost this garden. I was in tears that day. It was really traumatic actually for me, but because it was one of my favorite places. This is where we look out from the kitchen and look down, and so it was a very important garden to me. And you do all that work, you're tired, so you're a little more emotional. So we get a lot of tropical storms here. We've already had one this year. And you've seen in some of our videos, our thunderstorms are pretty harsh here, and we get deluged with rain. We're either very dry or way too much rain. It's feast or famine. We don't really have a great happy medium. Although I will say that this summer has been bringing some lighter rains at times, which has been nice. So yeah, so I'll go over kind of I'm not going to go through plant by plant. There are probably 100 plants in here, but it's more the kind of the philosophy of the gardening. I've been listening to a podcast called Joe Gardner, where they have some scientists and different experts on that podcast. I absolutely love it, and I recommend it highly if you're trying to kind of learn about the natural world and as it applies to gardening. And so one of the guys, it just really struck me that, he said that gardening isn't nature, and we tend to think it is, and it really isn't. We are controlling everything. So how can we get closer to what nature would do? And that's what I decided to do with this garden, while making sure it also is aesthetically pleasing. With some annuals and things like that also help the pollinators. So we kind of have best of both worlds. I like a much more wilder look. I'm not big on the landscape look where you have this plant 12-inch spacing, this plant 12-inch spacing. Yes, do the plants look like pristine versions of themselves and what they were supposed to be? Yes. But at the same time, you don't get this level of activity or I don't know, it just looks more natural to me. And everybody has their own aesthetic and what they're trying to achieve in their garden, and I'm not judgmental about it. I don't have a pulpit I'm standing on, or standing behind. So this is just what I'm trying to achieve with my garden, and that's as close to nature as I can get. We've stopped using peat moss, so all of our gardens are built on top of whatever's existing there. I can't believe the years I spent digging out sod and grass when it isn't necessary. The garden I'll show you that's behind the camera right now was all grass and weed. And I didn't even put newspaper down in that garden. That was just an experiment. But we did add, because we have flooding issues, and we were trying to solve some flooding issues with a retaining wall in the back. And we put a canal, and I'll show that in this video. We put a canal in front of just mulch to see if the mulch would work, because it would be light as it turned to soil. I could dig it, use it, throw it back into the garden, and reopen up the canal. So that's just an experimental thing I'm doing. So far it's working. We have not flooded once this year. And I can show you pictures of how this area just turns into a pool. We've been underwater sometimes for months back here. And everything we're doing with French drain pots, we have French drains in front. On this side we have French drains. They're not French drains. I call them French drain pots. They're basically pots to nowhere. We have a high water table. Taking the water somewhere just backflows back on us. We're surrounded by creeks. We have the biggest blueberry farmers, which brings water and flooding into our area. Is Atlantic Blueberry Farm. It's literally in our front yard, one house over. So, and then we have creeks. We have a lake, a large lake, a block away, down that way. So we are surrounded by water and a very high water table and sandy soil. So we needed to solve that problem. So we need to build up, but not create a wall where this became a pool. So what we did was, it was an experiment. My husband was horrified, but I just put the soil right on top of the sod. And I said, well, why disturb it? Why disturb all the earthworms we probably have under there, the microbes, all the good stuff under there? And also, every time you dig, you release sequestered carbon into the air. So that's something I've been learning, thankfully, through the Joe Gardner podcast, and also on some of the permaculture sites. That's mostly what I'm most interested in, is really learning what's the best research right now. I mean, we can't be perfect, but what can I do better that I can do the least amount of harm? Because I know when I garden, I harm. I buy plastic pots. I buy bagged mulch. Sometimes it's just, my husband and I are getting, we're getting older. For the level of gardening that we're doing, trucking with the wheelbarrows, it gets a lot. So the bagged mulch is really helpful. But we would like to get to a point where once the gardens are set, we'll be doing more where we do less bagging and we have more deliveries done. So that's on the, I hope within a couple of years I get to the point where we're trying to really be just using sustainable. But if you buy new plants, they're all in plastic pots. I don't know why they haven't solved that problem, but I guess because peat pots aren't the solution, because peat releases, when we go into the peat bogs, we release, crazy amounts of sequestered carbon. Not to mention there's some research that says it's not sustainable. So yeah, so basically that's what we're trying to do, is kind of develop our own ecosystem where we're bringing in a lot of parasitic wasps and kind of balancing out the ecosystem so we don't have so much insect pressure. Last year this bed would have been eaten alive, but because of all we've learned and we've been adding these techniques, our plants have very little damage, very little insect damage this year, yet the insects are prolific this year. So we have much less mosquito bites on us at the end of the day. So it does work. You just have to be patient and just keep planting, and everything kind of will balance out itself. You're never going to get mosquito free. You're never going to be disease free. You're never going to be, that's just kind of part of the natural world. So fighting that, or wildlife free. They came in, they took out all my front hostas. They took them out. I walked up front, I looked, and I was like, we have enough plants. It's not a big deal. And I'll just plant more hostas. So they have plenty to eat up there, so you don't even notice when you plant a lot. It just takes time to get to that point. I know when we first started this garden 20 years ago, we just couldn't even imagine how you would get a garden started here. We have so many rabbits. Rabbits are everywhere here. And we were like, how would you even they would drill everything down as we plant it. And so we would do the soap and everything, and gradually we were able to get more and more plants in that weren't. And what we noticed is, by not treating our lawn and only treating it like every 10 years, because every once in a while you have to treat it, because what ends up happening is, this year we ended up with so much clover, which kept the bunnies happy. I mean, the bunnies would just be out here. They weren't eating my plants. They were just eating all the clover. But what happened is it had been about 8 to 10 years since we last actually treated our lawn, except for crabgrass. Crabgrass, you'll see, it is so abundant here. We do put a pre-emergent down every year for crabgrass, because it gets in the beds, it gets everywhere, and then you don't even have ground cover with the crabgrass. So we just put a pre-emergent down. You'll see we only put it down once, and we still have tons of crabgrass everywhere. You really need 2 applications minimum if you want to, but I just want to keep it from going in the beds. So I do as little as possible with that. I would love to figure out a way to not have to do it at all. You can see we're eating up as much of the grass as possible, but you do want some lawn areas for playing lawn games, for the grandchildren to play, or your own children to play. So some is there, but we went a good 8 to 10 years without treating it at all for weeds at all. We weren't even liming it, so the weed just kind of took over. But what happened was, this year the clover went mad. It was everywhere. I couldn't keep it out of the beds, and so we did have to treat for the clover. But I don't think that's too bad, you know, to have to do that every once in a while. We live, like I said, so close to lakes and creeks. I've always worried about everything, even fertilizers. I mean, I don't want to cause algae blooms, and so I've really been reeling back on the fertilizer and putting more organic matter in. You see, every time you turn around, we're talking about manure or buying poop, because we just buy either mushroom compost or cow manure. We buy these things fully composted. You don't have to worry about them burning. We put it in by the bags and bags and bags in it, and we have never had a problem with any kind of burn or anything when it's fully composted. It barely even has a smell at that point. But boy, what the difference is in your plants. So that's basically what's the theory behind this. Throughout all the rules, didn't worry about height. You can see we have high in the front, we have high in the back, we have high in the middle, and we just kept planting. I'm still planting this over here, this Suncredible. Right now I'm just buying sale plants to keep it kind of going. So I'll do that throughout the fall, is buy sale plants. I'm getting like 50% off. I think I paid $250 for that Suncredible plant. There is my seed daisies. I put a lot of seed in there too. My seed daisies, they're just the old-fashioned daisies. They come up and then they lay right down and they sprawl all over all the other plants. So those I'm going to dig out, and I'm going to put another plant over there that hopefully will stand a little bit more upright. I don't mind, like the bee balm is now starting to go over. I don't mind when they do that. That's how they kind of drop their seeds into the ground. But I also don't want ones that just come up and just fall all over, because they can take up a space 5 foot by 5 foot, one plant, and nothing can grow there. So that's not good for the pollinators either. So I'll be moving those to a different part of our property. And as we run out of property, my dream is to find at least 5 acres or more of land nearby, somewhere in South Jersey, where we can easily access it and just preserve it, and start planting wildflower seed, and maybe a piece of land that has some kind of water source, natural water source or something like that. We'll see, but that's not the biggest thing. But I want a piece of land that we can just preserve, never build on it, and just go and all of our extra plants and divisions, just take them there and start planting them with no rhyme or reason, and just have it kind of like this, just wild and blooming, and a place for pollinators, and whatever adapts and can live without irrigation lives, and what doesn't just, you know, will probably kind of fade away. But you know, when you plant at the right times, particularly like around here in fall, there's a hummingbird. We've had a couple hummingbirds just on this bee balm. I don't know why it's going out of bloom, but right now the hummingbirds are absolutely loving the bee balm, and it's almost completely out of bloom. So I'm not exactly sure what they're deriving from it, but they didn't seem to pay any attention to it when it was in bloom. But now that the seed heads are there, so maybe someone can enlighten me what they might be after, if there's just still nectar in those seed heads or what they're looking for. But I thought that was pretty neat. The bees are still going crazy on it. They absolutely love it. Plant bee balm. These big bee balms, oh my gosh, the whole plant is alive with pollinators, butterflies, everything you can think of is in there. Wasps, yeah. So this is, anyway, so back to my dream. So that's just a dream. I've been looking. We'll see. It's a seller's market, not a buyer's market right now. But we'll keep looking, and maybe one day we'll be able to find that property that we can kind of start working on and preserving. Maybe even allowing other people who, you know, because we are in a suburban area that don't have space to maybe garden there, and, you know, grow some vegetables or fruits or something like that. I thought that my husband really thought that would be a great idea. They have those plots of land in you know, on the British garden shows that they rent, and he just thinks that's such a neat idea, and that people would love to have that, like city, you know, people who live in the city, to come out and be able to garden and grow their own fresh vegetables and stuff. Okay, so this is running really long, I'm sorry, but I just thought I'd kind of give you my philosophy on how we've been planting. And yeah, so I'll kind of give you maybe a quick tour of it. It's pretty much out of bloom right now. It's the beginning of August, but there's still plenty of things for the pollinators to feed on. Okay, I'll get started. Okay, so I'll make this portion quick since this video is getting really long. The plants that were chosen for this area were a combination of your nursery, normal nursery cultivars, and also native plants. That was very important to me, that throughout my entire garden that I am continuously adding natives. I do not believe that you have to have a garden full of natives. I think that you should have a garden that is a good mixture of both, because a garden should be aesthetically pleasing. You're more likely to tend it and be in love with it if it's aesthetically pleasing to you. So whatever that is, whether it's wild, whether it's untouched, whatever that is, that's important. So that's how I decided to choose the plants. I love the hibiscus. I do like that it kind of just pretty much will die back to the ground for maintenance and things like that. So I put a hibiscus in, and I kind of successioned it in front of the clematis vine, or clematis, however you want to say it, vine behind it. So as that went out of bloom, this would then come into bloom and grow up. And so basically this whole thing is, it looks completely different in the spring. There are tons of spring bulbs in here already, and considering that 3 months ago this was completely bare, there was nothing here, and this is how abundant it looks in 3 months time. You can really get this going fast by just continuously planting. And again, I just look for sales, a lot of bulbs, a lot of seeds. The dahlias in the back that are competing for the highest dahlias in the world, I think, I've never had much luck with dahlias on my property. They they kind of just get weedy and produce some small flowers. That's supposed to be a dinner plate type, and look at how small those flowers are. It's hysterical. Okay, so back what I was saying, I have geranium in here. There's little lime hydrangeas for structure, a firelight hydrangea in the middle, bee balms, salvias. Along the border, I've just been putting annuals. So these happen to be super petunias, but before they were pansies. And the pansies, I did not take out the pansies. I just kind of let them die back as they wished. Some lasted a very long time. Actually, we have some pansies, and it's the beginning of August. So don't be quick to completely rip them out, because some of them will survive. And then the ones that haven't, which down here, you see, now I'm going to plant something else in that space where they've kind of died off, the pansies. But some of them look like they're trying to rebound, so we'll see. I will probably replant there since they're annual. Yeah, so basically we have reblooming azaleas, we have roses, we have daylilies, we have Coreopsis. That's a nice native to have. We have probably about 5 different Coreopsis on the property. Coneflower, of course, is always a really great. Black-eyed Susans are in here. They're a great native to have. And you can really see how, I'm hoping it's picking up, but this is actually a slow day. It's really hot. But for pollinators, they are just, this whole bed seems like it's moving sometimes. Down here we have ladies' mantle, we have Astilbe. I'm going to put this blue hyssop in. This is where the daisy, I'm going to take out the daisy. I cut it back already, and I'm going to replace it with this native hyssop. And that will bloom from midsummer to fall. So that will provide nectar and pollen for the pollinators. Down here we have a pinky winky hydrangea. We have some hosta. There's yarrow, lots of daisies, different kinds of daisies. You can see I kind of left the seed heads on. It's time to take them off now, but I left all the seed heads on and just kind of naturally allowed them to go out. If you deadhead them, you can keep them blooming. I will probably deadhead them soon because they're kind of waterlogged, and I don't think the seeds are good anymore for the pollinators. So yes, so this is basically, there are so many plants in here and different cultivars of plants that it would take me probably 3 hours to go over every single plant in here. So we're just going to leave this video here as it is with the information I've given you. And if you have any questions, just let me know. And I hope you got some information or got some ideas for your own garden. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. This is the back side of the border. It was meant to look good from both sides.